Thank you for spending another midweek moment with the Wisconsin property taxpayers. I'm Paul Rozeski. Today is Wednesday, the 11th of September, 2024. I'm sure it wouldn't surprise you that on the anniversary of the Twin Towers attack, today is the National Day of Service and Remembrance, the National Emergency Responders Day, Remember Freedom Day, and Patriot Day. Things that should be honored year-round, which could also apply to National Report Medicare Fraud Day on Thursday. With the amount of waste and fraud and crazy costs in our broken healthcare system, let's obviously want to do that every day also. Also, if you're superstitious, you probably already know that this week has a Friday the 13th. That day is also International Chocolate Day, so this week gives you plenty of options. However you appreciate life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, please celebrate responsibly. And without further ado, let's jump into some news together. Let's start off with a quick recap of Tuesday's presidential debate and my in-depth analysis. I can never get that time back in my life. In other news, here is a press release from Governor Tony Evers' office. I will read the title verbatim. Quote, Governor Evers and the DNR announce Inflation Reduction Act Urban Forestry Grant recipients. It goes on to say, the funds will go toward work such as removing hazardous trees, increasing the forest canopy through planting, supporting urban forestry, workforce development, and using trees to reduce urban heat. I don't think anyone is against any of those things. More trees in urban areas is good. More trees is good. What gets me is that these are Inflation Reduction Act dollars. If the point of the act was to pump money into the system to fund projects to keep businesses busy and open from COVID slowdowns while the consumer economy paused and got back going, these dollars are 2 or 3 years too late. If we really are going to be reducing inflation, a bunch of this contrived money would be pulled back out of circulation. That is what will reduce the inflationary effects of what we're left with. It feels like there are fewer bipartisan topics these days, but government money that sounds like it should do one thing and get spent elsewhere is not part of the solution. Just leave that sit there. In other news, funding and the future of the UW system and all its campuses is going under the microscope by a study committee. Because of that, trends and numbers of the universities are resurfacing. Went through a bunch of stuff, a couple of trends that I learned about Madison. Up until 2010, state general purpose revenue was the largest resource or source of income for the entire UW system. But now, campuses get more from both tuition and federal money, grants and contracts for research. Between 2001 and 2011, in that decade, in-state undergraduate tuition more than doubled at every 4-year UW campus, which led to the in-state tuition freeze that still exists today. Tuition increases now need legislative approval and happen occasionally, which is probably why the number of first-time in-state students has dropped to around 50% of the overall enrollment at UW-Madison. Out-of-state tuition doesn't have the restrictions on tuition increases. So let's be real, those students, the out-of-state students or international students, are more profitable, and if they can bring more in, why not do it? Next, when you compare 35 similar research universities, in 2020 tuition and fees, UW-Madison was the 10th lowest and professor salaries were about 15% lower than the median professor salary, yet they're ranking highly on the college ranking lists, which is cool. Finally, they have less decision-making ability than almost every other Big Ten school. They can't issue debt or manage construction projects without approval. Like we said, they can't increase tuition, but that may change. Some ideas that are already being floated are let Madison spit off from the current structure of all the UW system, which would mean that maybe they can play by some different rules and they can maybe keep up with the Joneses. Maybe they can be a little more self-sufficient. And what I'd like to know is whether the whole system and all the other campuses can get stronger if they can get larger slices of the state funding pie, if Madison doesn't get as much or get any anymore. I'm going to ask around and find out, but I also know that plenty of ideas that get floated out there in our state government are like balloons. You release them and they just drift off towards the horizon, never to be seen again. And finally, let's dig back into the You Can't Make That Up file, a personal favorite. This one comes from the Denver Post and our friends. It's about our friends in Durango, Colorado. The headline reads, Colorado Fire Department denied insurance because of fire risk. The town is trying to build a new downtown firehouse but couldn't because they were repeatedly denied because of the wildfire risk. What's awesome is this quote from the fire chief, Randy Black, because he sums up the irony here. Quote, "We literally are a fire station, building a fire station next to a fire station between a river and a highway." For context, a river is a natural fire break and a highway is a natural fire break. I say all's well that ends well, especially for us here in Wisconsin that don't have to navigate that in the first place. And finally, I leave us with a quote from President George W. Bush in honor of what may be the most famous date in United States history. And I quote, "On September 11, 2001, America felt its vulnerability, even to threats that gather on the other side of the earth. We resolved then, and we are resolved today, to confront every threat from any source that could bring sudden terror and suffering to America." Unquote. Don't be distracted, and don't forget, and have a great second half of your week. And as always, thanks for listening. Wisconsin Property Taxpayers Inc. is a nonpartisan membership organization consisting of thousands of small business, farm, and homeowner members in every patriotic corner of the state. Founded in 1985, the organization is committed to providing its members with up-to-date information, legislative advocacy, and exclusive cost-saving benefits. Find out how to join at WPTOnline.org/join.